The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Fenland for round number 2. Now today I'm in a little place called Newton. We've seen loads of Newtons on this channel before, but this one's got a little bit extra at the end of its name. It's called Newton in the Isle. Newton in the Isle, new farm on the island of Eels. Round 2 in Fenland sees us in a parish called Newton in the Isle, which is 4 miles or so to the north of Wisbech. The isle referred to in its name is the Isle of Ely, something which so far we've not yet mentioned on TVI. The Isle of Ely was a raised portion of land that sat within the Fens, which used to be mostly underwater. It was effectively an island. We'll be meeting it a lot more as we venture through this area. Although the village was commonly known as simply Newton, since 2016 In the Isle has been added back to its name to prevent confusion with other Newtons nearby. It's not famed for a lot, but in this one we'll get the chance to talk for the first time about something called woad, a flowering plant which was often used as both a blue dye and for medicinal reasons. It was grown extensively on the Isle of Ely. Newton is situated on something called the Silt Fen, which is also known as the townland. It formed before the Bronze Age. Despite that, it would take until the early medieval period for a village to emerge in these parts. Newton wasn't listed in the Domesday Book and was probably settled later, with its first mention appearing in the year 1210. In 1286, the village was the principal residence of Sir Roger de Colville. Members of his family would be familiar with Newton for more than 500 years thereafter. It was 1792 before the Colvilles would finally leave. A few decades ago, before Kinderley School was founded in Tid St Giles, Newton had a school that was named after the Colville family. Let's see where it was and explore the rest of Newton in the Isle while we're at it. Today's walk begins on High Road, which runs between the westernmost and easternmost parts of the village and generally to the south of everything here. Our first job is to check out this old chapel. This was built in 1868 under the auspices of the Wisbech Circuit of the United Methodist Free Churches. It may have replaced an earlier chapel or meeting room of Wesleyan origin. When it was in operation, there was seating for 130 people, but it never had a Sunday schoolroom. It closed in around 1980. 2 years later, planning permission was granted for change of use, and it became an onion peeling plant. That didn't last long, and by 1988 it had been converted into a dwelling. The date stone remains on the front gable, as does a defaced name plaque below it. There's a bit of debate as to why it's defaced. It was possibly as a result of the Methodist Union, formed in 1932, who were quick to expunge the old labels of division. High Road's name is a direct reference to how the local geography used to look several centuries ago. Believe it or not, Newton used to sit right on the edge of the sea. The village is located right at the northern tip of the Isle of Ely, and even now its furthest reaches still almost touch the sea. The land, which extends east and west on either side of the northern tip, has a rather different character to the rest of the region. You see, this is the Silt Fen, so named thanks to a narrow band of it, which was deposited by the Great Fen Rivers sometime before the Bronze Age. Also known as the townland, it was quite unlike the salt marshes along the coast to the north and the much more watery Fenland to the south. This strip was actually quite well inhabited. High Road would have been exactly what it sounds like. It was a raised portion of the fen above the level of the watery surrounds, sufficiently dry to allow villages to form. Being on the sea bank, it meant it had a rather enviable position. Although Newton was never a port, it was perfect for trade. It was nearby Leverington, though, that grew much more thanks to that. Okay, the next thing to talk about is a little bit difficult to find, to be honest with you. There is no clues as to where this might be. It's a school, apparently, and it's somewhere on this corner, but it looks all like houses to me. What do you reckon? Can you see a school anywhere? I can't. Let's see if we can find it. So, somewhere on this corner is Chartwell House School, although exactly where absolutely stumped me. It's marked on the map at this corner, but as you can see, its site is not obvious. Wherever it is, it's an independent, residential special school for up to 9 boys between the ages of 10 and 16. They require a safe, stable, structured environment. It aims to provide a small family setting for boys of average or above average intelligence who have emotional or behavioural difficulties. Now, on the subject of schools and education in general, that brings us to the Colville family. In 1286, the manor of Newton became the possession of the Colville family. That was thanks to Sir Roger de Colville, who took up residence here after he married Desiderata, the granddaughter of Sir Stephen de Moresco. He was Lord of Newton, Walsoken and Tid. Newton became the chief residence of the Colville family for over 500 years until it was finally sold in 1792. It was Robert Colville that sold the Newton Hall estate to James Reddin, ending the family's 550-year connection with the village. However, the Colville name is still associated with Newton, such was their influence on the village. They did quite a few things while they were here. Perhaps most importantly, they had a bearing on the draining of the Fens. In 1632, Richard Colville commissioned Henry Derham to drain an area stretching to some 3,000 acres. Derham carried out the works at his own expense in return for a rent of 40 shillings per acre on 2/5 of the land. He'd finished the work within 3 years. Such was the Colville family's influence on Newton, its primary school used to carry their name, and did so until it closed down in 1987. The school no longer stands, but I can show you where it was. So when I first had a look at Newton in the Isle, before I was even thinking about planning this route, I noticed straight away this area here on the corner of Goodens Lane and Church Lane. And this is where there used to be Colville Primary School. It's now been demolished, as you can see, but yeah, there are plans apparently to build something on this land. Hasn't pleased everybody though. This patch of waste ground on the corner of Church Lane and Goodens Lane was the site of the former Colville Primary School. It was built and opened in 1930, replacing a previous school that stood elsewhere in Newton. We'll see where that was shortly. Colville Primary was the first state-funded school in the village. Now demolished and completely flattened, all that remains are the footings of the school buildings. It's a bit of an eyesore, really. There have been plans put forward to redevelop the former school site, but as yet, nothing has been built here. Until such time as something is finalised, Newton will continue to have this piece of barren ground. One would hope that whatever does get built here will somehow honour the Colville name. Let's make our way through the playing field now as we head towards the parish church of St James. Newton's playing field, when compared to the size of the village we're in, is absolutely huge. St James's Church is a medieval structure. Formerly dedicated to St Catherine, it stood on its current site for more than 800 years. It was built in the 12th century and widened in the 14th. Its full title is actually a bit longer than you might think. Officially, this is St James with St Mary in the Marsh. The link with St Mary in the Marsh refers to a long-lost chapel and college that stood on the old sea bank on the outskirts of the village. St James's Church cannot be defined as one of the great churches that are dotted across the Silt Fen. Neither is it especially interesting, even though it's pleasant enough. There's a nice south porch with a big entrance arch, and the decorated tower is interesting. It's small, but with decorative buttresses. The tower and the nave both date from the turn of the 14th century, whilst the clerestory and chancel were added a little later, in perpendicular fashion. The eastern window of the north aisle is very beautiful, with lovely curving tracery. It contains glass from 1931, dedicated to the memory of William Bohr of Wisbech. The church also has a 19th century rood screen complete with a rood loft. It's a very elaborate structure and fills the chancel arch almost entirely. The barrelled chancel roof seems to have been restored at the same time as the screen was inserted, for it too is decorated in a high Victorian style, with stenciling of red and green. The Victorians also provided some good floor tiles here, following the pattern of a few medieval survivals, which are dotted here and there. Now, the church isn't the only thing here in Newton in the Isle that's got a religious theme to it. We'll come to something else a little bit later. Next up, though, we're heading towards the village hall. The village hall is an ideal venue for almost every kind of gathering, including children's parties, company presentations, club meetings, society lectures and fundraising events. As you can probably tell, this was the former school which Colville Primary replaced. In 1931 it was taken over by the Women's Institute before eventually becoming the village hall that it is today. This next thing is something else that the Colville family had a huge connection to. On Chapel Lane, which runs eastwards out of the village towards the A1101, is the old rectory. Shrouded in trees, the grand old house that you'll find on the site today dates from the 18th century, but the piece of land it occupies has a much longer history than that. Crossing the site is the sea dyke, which is believed to date from Roman and medieval times. It's one of the earliest known sea defences in the country. The thing is, in Newton it wasn't very good. The rectory sits on the site of a lost village called Saltmarsh, which had to be abandoned due to flooding. It's unclear when it was abandoned, but a new village seems to have been formed in the 13th century. The site of its predecessor was marked by an ancient chapel dedicated to St Mary in the Marsh. In 1403, Sir John Colville rebuilt that chapel. He also got permission to build houses for priests and up to 12 poor almsmen. This is what would become known as the College of St Mary by the Sea. By the 15th century, Newton had become a popular place of pilgrimage thanks to the college, but it seems to have gone out of use at some point before 1547. Today, the remains of the college buildings, including the chapel, are believed to lie somewhere within the grounds of the old rectory. So too are the remains of ancient bodies buried beneath them. As such, the rectory has had more than its fair share of ghostly goings-on, according to the locals. All that remains is to walk back to the start again via High Road, but we're not done with this one just yet. We have one more thing to see here in Newton. Well, Newton in the Isle definitely is your typical Fenland village, let me tell you, because as you can see behind me there, all you've got for mile upon mile is green lush fields and a big blue sky, which this morning looks absolutely brilliant. And that's really my accompaniment back to where I've parked the car, close to the chapel where we began. But we're not quite done with this yet, you see, because Newton can be split into two sections. There's the bit that I've just walked around, and then to the west there's another section where there used to be a pub. Newton used to have two pubs. One was called the White Lion, and that was closed in 1993. The other one was still trading in 2017, but now it's been demolished. Located at the western end of the village, it was called the Wodeman's Arms. It derived its name from a type of plant that was grown in the village until the 19th century. The pub used to be run by Green King. It was a friendly, two-roomed affair that offered a traditional pub atmosphere with pool and darts. Now though, it's all gone. So that leaves us with one question. What exactly is woad? Well, it's not something that you expect to hear about every day, but on the Isle of Ely, it provided a lot of people with a living. Woad, or wad, is a flowering plant. It has the Latin name Isatis tinctoria, and it's occasionally known as Asp of Jerusalem. Grown extensively across the Isle of Ely, it had a couple of uses. Woad is also the name of a blue dye produced from its leaves. Since ancient times, the dye was cultivated throughout Europe. In medieval times, there were important woad-growing regions not just in England, but also in Germany and France. Towns such as Toulouse became prosperous from the woad trade. Its use was eventually replaced by the more colour-fast Indigofera tinctoria, and in the early 20th century, both were replaced by synthetic blue dyes. Woad has also been used medicinally for centuries. Anciently, it was used to treat wounds, but again, this has now fallen by the wayside. Here in Newton, it was grown and processed, and there were several woad mills across the wider area. None survive today, but you can see a model of one at the Wisbech and Fenland Museum. To finish with, we're in the southernmost reaches of Newton Parish in a small hamlet called Fitton End. This isn't much more than just a collection of houses, but there's one place that stands out above all. That would be Cambian Willows on the right hand side. It's a care home for young people between the ages of 12 and 18 who are experiencing mental health difficulties. It's part of the Cambian Group, which includes 3 other similar places in Trent Valley House in Staffordshire, the Hale in the West Midlands, and Miko House elsewhere in Cambridgeshire. That's 2 down and 14 to go in Fenland. That was a fun one, wasn't it? It was full of loads of stuff that's unusual, generally speaking. Now tomorrow we're off to the biggest village we'll have met so far in the Fenland district. Be careful not to confuse this next one with a place in Suffolk. See you there in 24 hours. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.